You know, the word Spartan, it just echoes with power, doesn't it? It brings up these images of incredible discipline, austerity, and just unmatched courage. But the real story of Sparta isn't just about the soldier. It's about the radical, honestly terrifying, and completely unique society that created him.
Just imagine. For centuries, this helmet was the last thing thousands and thousands of enemy soldiers ever saw. It really was the absolute pinnacle of martial prowess, a symbol of a warrior who was trained from the moment he was born for one single purpose: victory or death on the battlefield.
We always think of the Spartan warrior as the weapon, but what if we're looking at it all wrong? What if the individual warrior was just the tip of the spear, and the real weapon was the entire state? A perfectly engineered machine designed for one thing: producing soldiers.
Okay, so first things first, let's peel back the layers of legend and try to understand the reality of what Sparta actually was.
This is the Spartan mindset in a nutshell. I mean, someone warns them that the Persian arrows are going to be so thick they'll block out the sun, and the Spartan officer Dienekes just thinks that's great news. This wasn't just bravado. It was the end product of a system that had completely rewired the normal human response to fear.
So we imagine Sparta as this massive military superpower, right? Well, the reality is going to shock you. It was tiny. I mean, really tiny. The source material compares it to the small English town of Ely. This wasn't some vast empire, it was a fly speck of a city-state that somehow projected this immense power far, far beyond its size. And honestly, it looked the part. Unlike Athens, with its stunning Parthenon, Sparta had no grand monuments. Visitors were often just shocked by how plain and, well, unimpressive the city itself was. Its legacy wasn't built in stone, it was built in flesh and blood. So how on earth did this tiny, unremarkable place become so feared? Well, the truth is, Sparta didn't really choose this path. It was forced onto it by two massive pressures: geography and fear. The first pressure was geography. Just look at this landscape. Sparta was essentially trapped in this narrow valley, completely hemmed in by the towering Taygetos Mountains. So it couldn't grow through trade like Athens or Corinth. It couldn't really expand its farming. The only way out, the only path to survival and growth, was to fight. So they fought. They conquered their neighbors in Messenia and took all their fertile land. But in solving that problem, they created a second, far, far more dangerous one. See, they didn't just defeat the Messenians. They enslaved the entire population, turning them into a class of state-owned serfs they called helots. And this is the key to understanding everything about Sparta. Historians estimate that for every one Spartan citizen, there could have been as many as 8 enslaved helots. Just let that sink in for a second. The Spartans were living on a powder keg, constantly, terrifyingly outnumbered by a captive population that absolutely hated them. This created a permanent, paralyzing fear of rebellion. And that fear, well, it became the architect of their entire society. To control the helots and secure their state, the Spartans undertook this radical social experiment, a complete re-engineering of human life that's attributed to a legendary lawgiver named Lycurgus. At the very heart of this new system was the agoge. Now, this was not school as we know it. It was a 13-year-long ordeal designed to systematically break a boy's individuality and rebuild him as just a component of the state, a perfect soldier. It started, literally, at birth with an inspection for any weakness. If a baby boy survived that, he was torn from his mother at age 7 to enter the barracks. And life there was just brutal. He was systematically starved to encourage him to steal and be cunning, and he was forced into these ritual combats that included things like biting and eye gouging. By the time he was 20, his transformation was complete. He was no longer an individual, but a soldier for the state, period. This famous story, a story told to every Spartan boy, it just captures the absolute psychological control the system demanded. The lesson was crystal clear. Pain is temporary, getting caught and showing weakness is unforgivable, and the ultimate virtue is to endure any suffering without a single complaint. Now, Spartan women were also absolutely integral to this machine. In the Spartan view, their primary job was to bear future soldiers. They were freed from a lot of domestic duties so they could focus on intense physical training, wrestling, running, throwing javelins, all of it designed to produce the strongest possible sons for the state. So after all of that, the geography, the fear, the agoge, What did this system actually produce? Well, it was a production line for one thing, the hoplite.
The hoplite's power started with his gear, his panoply, and it was all designed for the collective, not the individual. His body was protected by this heavy bronze armor, turning him into a walking fortress. And that intimidating Corinthian helmet, it didn't just protect his head, it totally erased his face, making him an anonymous, terrifying part of a single monstrous organism.
But the most important piece of that organism was the aspis, the shield. Its huge size was crucial, not so much for protecting the man holding it, but for protecting the man next to him in the phalanx formation. To drop your shield was the ultimate disgrace because it put the entire unit in danger. And that's where that famous farewell from a Spartan mother comes from: return with your shield or dead on it.
And finally, the weapon that made the phalanx so deadly, the doru. This 9-foot spear was brutally effective. It allowed the Spartans, all protected by their wall of shields, to create this unstoppable hedge of death for anyone who was foolish enough to charge them. You see, this wasn't a collection of individual heroes. It was a system.
So, Sparta achieved its goal. It created a society that was, for a time, perfectly secure and militarily dominant. But that perfection, it came at a cost that is almost unbelievable. This slide really lays out the stark trade-off right at the heart of Sparta. In exchange for military supremacy, they sacrificed, well, pretty much everything else. The creativity you can see in early Spartan pottery, it just vanished. They produced no great philosophers like Athens, no great playwrights, no great historians. They traded personal freedom, art, and intellectual curiosity for the one single goal of security. Just listen to this beautiful, sensual line of poetry. It comes from an early Spartan poet named Alcman. And it's this little glimpse of a different Sparta, a culture that actually appreciated beauty and tenderness. But as the military state got stronger and stronger, voices like Alcman's were silenced. The system just had no room for them. It actively stamped out the very humanity that produces art like this. Which leaves us right here with the Spartan Paradox. They built the perfect shield to protect their society, but in doing so, they may have actually destroyed everything that was worth protecting in the first place. And it forces us to ask a question that's just as relevant today as it was 2,500 years ago. What is the ultimate price of security?